the Let's Go Live button, which means we've got to wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet before we can go ahead and get started. And we have some fun stuff to attend to today. And so we want to make sure that the YouTube is connected. We already know Locals is good. How is Rumble doing? Are we on Twitter? And of course, we're also on our private Telegram community. And sometimes that is a little bit late to kick started, but it looks like we're on over there as well, which is tremendous news. That means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney broadcasting from the Valley of the Sun deep in downtown Phoenix, Arizona. And today, my friends, we are talking about a scolding that took place in Congress today, and a big juicy one. And so if you are somebody who likes your meat extra red and extra raw, put on an extra layer of bibs and clothing because it's going to be a juicy one today. Merrick Garland was in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and we are familiar with what happens there. We talk a lot about the Senate Judiciary Committee. They talk about really a lot of things pertaining to the law, the Department of Justice, the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, a lot of the civil liberties, constitutional rights we talk a lot about here. And so today was a big hearing, in fact, because they actually called in the Attorney General of the United States. It's a big position, the chief law enforcement officer of the whole country. His name is Merrick Garland, and we've heard a lot from him. And he's typically the guy, you know what he looks like right here. He comes out and he says things like, well, we speak through our filings, and he reads a 5-minute statement, and then he passes it off to Lisa Monaco, who's really in charge of the DOJ, and then she comes out and does a bunch of stuff. And so anytime we can get our hands for any length of time on Attorney General Merrick Garland, we want to really unpack what is going on, because he's been the subject of a lot of controversy over these last few Biden years. And some of them we've talked a lot about here. We're going to go through this. Lindsey Graham is going to give us the opening statement. He's talking about fentanyl poisoning and all of this coming up through the southern border, being produced by China, and then that causing all sorts of deaths and catastrophe in the United States, and including contributing to the downfall of life expectancy in the United States, and it's not insignificant. So we'll go through that. Merrick Garland gave his opening statement. It's about 5 minutes long, and so I do want to give him some time to explain what the hell they're doing over there at DOJ. We'll go through that. Now, Ted Cruz, Lion Ted, Lion, was a lion today in the Senate. He was absolutely fired up, and he let Merrick Garland have it hard, and it was a lot of fun to watch. And these are essentially kind of giant games of patty cake, really, at this level. Like, they all went to the same schools, they all know the same people, they're all working as part of kind of the same upper echelon. But we do like to enjoy when there is just a sort of a very nice, good political battle taking place for all of us to see. And Ted Cruz really delivered at home. And I think what Ted Cruz and these other senators are talking about really does matter. Like, these are some of the most important issues in this country right now, because justice touches all of us, right? I don't necessarily, am impacted by a lot of other issues. Neither are you, right? We talk a lot about them, but we don't necessarily have to face them on a regular basis. Justice touches all of us and the people we know and love. And if it is perverted, then it's a big, giant problem. And so we got to get to the bottom of it. So Ted Cruz is talking about Dobbs and judges' safety. We had the Dobbs opinion come out. We had the justices literally having mobs of maniacs banging drums outside Kavanaugh's house. And there was a news story that I want to sort of divert to while we're talking about justice. Came out from the Washington Post, an exclusive. They're saying that with the raid of Trump's residence in Mar-a-Lago, that there was actually a little bit of conflicting opinions on whether the raid was a good idea or not. FBI was saying, yeah, maybe we shouldn't do this. And the DOJ said, hold on a minute here. We're in charge. Okay, just do what we say. And so Merrick Garland, right, he didn't get asked about this today, because I think this story broke today, 6 a.m. Eastern time. I'm not sure that they were really up to speed on this story. But the question is, why is he politicizing the raid of his political enemies? All right, it's like a scandal that makes Watergate look like child's play. So we'll go through that story. We also have other clips from Josh Hawley, Tom Cotton, Senator Kennedy, and Grassley. Hawley's talking about the anti-Catholic bias that we've seen, saying that they have been prosecuting and embedding informants amongst the Catholic people. Shout outs. Very inappropriate. And so Mark Houck was the individual we've talked about. He was the sort of the pro-life activist who got arrested. We went through the indictment there, talked all about it. He was acquitted in very quick time, about an hour. We'll take a look at that story. Josh Hawley brought it up as well. We also have Tom Cotton brought up the southern border and went through the murder rates of a lot of the Central American, South American countries relative to cities in the United States, which was a fun little lesson. And we also have Senator Kennedy, who is always fun to listen to. You can see in this GIF and or GIF, depending on your vernacular of choice, we have Senator Kennedy who's doing the old glasses thing. You know, he likes to do the old glasses thing. What the heck are you talking about, Mayor? And puts his glasses on. You know, so he's talking about the school directives and chilled speech that were taking place when parents were protesting a lot of the school insanity that we talked about here. We've also got Grassley, who talked about Hunter Biden, and we'll save him for last. So if it's bedtime where you are, you can listen to him and then drift off into a sweet slumber as he reads us his questions in a very gentlemanly way. I love Chuck Grassley, but he's just a little bit Grassley. So we'll go through that. Now, you can see we're going to have a lot of clips here. It's a lot of fun. Now, I don't know what the heck was in these senators' water or breakfast or eggs this morning, but it is fun. And so we are going to go through it today. But my friends, if you want to be a part of the show, the best place to do that is by heading over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com or by joining us as a member on YouTube. So either way, however you want to support the show, you can go over and support us on Locals, or you can support us here on YouTube. If you're watching here on YouTube, or Rumble has a link to Locals if you're watching over on Rumble. It doesn't really matter. We appreciate it. Wherever it is you sign up and support us, check out the private Telegram group. The link is going to be in the community wherever you sign up, and get access to the private Telegram group. We have an awesome community over there. We're almost at 100 people in our private community, I believe, which is just awesome. And so shout out to our Telegram group and watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And by the way, I want to shout out, ultra shout out. We had some amazing new members are coming in the house, courtesy of Maybe Sunshine. Maybe Sunshine, thank you very much. Gifted 5 memberships. And so we've got Donna Newland, we have Spencer King, Chase Junkie, Zancy Pelosi are going to all be new members. Mary Hudson, all gifted memberships courtesy of Maybe Sunshine. Thank you, Maybe. That's very nice of you. And so we're going to have new people who can get the Telegram link, join us over there. And of course, we did a morning stream this morning where we covered the headlines, and we like to talk about the news while it's fresh out of the oven. And we often decide what we're going to talk about here on the show as well. So come and check us out over there. And thank you, Maybe Sunshine, for that one. And also another giant thank you to John McGarvey. John McGarvey, thank you so much, John. John has been inviting a lot of new members, and we're grateful for that. In fact, we had a pretty lively member stream on YouTube this morning because of, I think, John McGarvey yesterday even invited some people. So John, very generous. Thank you, John. So John invited Sun Yu Liberty, Andy Hansis, Liu De Hua, welcome, and Just Down, the Soulless Ginger. Well, it's going to be a fun welcome to you, Soulless Ginger. That should be fun. And we have Jonna Kayers also gifted a membership courtesy of John McGarvey. And we're super grateful for that. Thanks, John. And thank you, Maybe Sunshine. Very, very nice. And thank you, Vanticus Prime, for clipping those for me for ease of readership. I appreciate that. And I also want to shout out our sponsors of the show, this stream today, of course, Brick House Nutrition. If you have not gotten your field of greens yet, well, you know, there are a group of vegetables that are just waiting there, desiring to be eaten. They want to be eaten. They want to help fortify you and your nutrition. And so go to fieldofgreens.com. Don't forget to use code Robert. Get your real organic superfood. It's your daily servings of fruits and vegetables. Very delicious, very nutritious. Tastes great going down, and it'll make you feel nice, energetic, and vibrant. So check it out at fieldofgreens.com, and don't forget to use code Robert. Also, want to shout out my former law firm. Of course, I'm no longer at the R&R Law Group, but they still are the R&R Law Group, and they're more R&R than ever. They're better than ever. And so they're helping good people charged with crimes, and you can find them at 480-787-0394. So if you know anybody in the state of Arizona who needs some help, they are an amazing law firm, and they can help you. Check them out online at rrlaw.com. az.com. All right, so let's get right to it, my friends, and get into business. The Senate Judiciary Committee in session, a number of senators, you see them here, mostly Republicans in this episode. We've got Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, Tom Cotton, Senator Kennedy, Chuck Grassley, and Lindsey Graham, all taking it to Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland. And there's not many opportunities for the sitting leader of the Department of Justice, a massive federal agency and bureaucracy responsible for just unknown gob amount of power and authority and bureaucracy in this country, almost never comes in and sort of gets lectured by senators for 4 or 5 hours. But we got that opportunity today, and we are going to enjoy it. And it is extra juicy because the Republicans were extra fired up. And again, I don't know what was in their coffee this morning or what happened, but I have an opinion that I think that they sort of were on the same wavelength on this one, some way, shape, or form. Oftentimes, you'll see one senator come out and start swinging for it, but they were all coming out here. And it started with Ted Cruz. And of course, we're going to get there in a quick minute. But let's understand what the Senate Judiciary Committee looks like. I mean, who's on this thing? How does it all work? Because this is a pretty big committee. This is a pretty important proceeding. Merrick Garland was sworn in. He was under oath. We've got all sorts of questions about the Justice Department. We've talked about January 6th, border stuff. We've talked about all the different criminal prosecutions or lack thereof, the real prosecutions, the fake prosecutions, all of the malfeasance from the FBI, right? It all goes up to Merrick Garland. So he's in front of the Senate now. And the Senate, of course, is still in control of the Democrats. We've got Dick Durbin, who is leading it. He is the chairman. Ranking member for the minority is Lindsey Graham. And so we'll go through both of those. Now, the majority members that we're really going to skip through today, and to be honest with you, I did listen to several lines of questioning from the Democrats, and they were extremely bland and boring, and which is really why we're just not going to go through them. Cory Booker was sort of, opining about what a great job the DOJ has done with equity and diversity. Mazi Hirono was basically saying that Merrick Garland was being abused as a witness because he was being asked hard questions and saying that he should be put in like witness protection or something like that. It was kind of a joke. The reason these are interesting is when they are adversarial, when the oppositional party gets to ask the questions, which is why it would have been interesting to have any semblance of adversarial process in the January 6th proceedings. Of course, we never saw any of that. So instead, we are going to turn our attention over to the Republicans because they were fired up today, and it makes for a lot more interesting watching and YouTubing. And so we're going to get into that. Now, we've got Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, Tom Cotton are lined up. We've got John Kennedy, Chuck Grassley, and we're going to go through all of it. And so we have the opening statement came out from Dick Durbin, and he was, opening the ceremonies just like you would expect sort of any one of these things to open. But then he turned it over to Lindsey Graham. And Lindsey Graham also had a line of questioning, which we'll skip through because we can only take so much Lindsey Graham. However, he did have an interesting couple points when he was sort of speaking for the minority party, which in this case is the Republicans. So this is Lindsey Graham, Senate Judiciary Committee, speaking on behalf of the minority party, the Republicans, getting ready to question Attorney General Merrick Garland, which is not a common occurrence. We're excited to see what they get into.
Graham. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Mr. Attorney General. Appreciate you coming to the committee. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having the hearing. Here's sort of the other side of the story. When you asked Americans, are we on the right track as a nation, about 70% of them say no. Now, why?
Because you've been in office
forever. There's a feeling
in
this country that we're losing control of our streets, that crime is increasing, and the world is a very dangerous people, and people don't feel safe anymore. You talk about the number of deaths from gun violence, certainly something we should be concerned about. But let me tell you something we all should be concerned about. Rebecca Keisling, a mother, testified yesterday who lost 2 sons to fentanyl overdose. They were buying, I think, a Percocet pill, and it was laced with fentanyl, and they died from taking one pill, both
terrible.
of them.
I mean, unbelievable.
She said,
two sons.
This is a war, act like it, do something. So 106,000 people died from drug overdoses, 70,000 from fentanyl last year, and it's getting worse. The leading cause of death for Americans age 18 to 45 is death by fentanyl poisoning. What are we doing?
Nothing.
What is that something? So I
Nothing.
hope we'll recommit ourselves, Mr. Chairman, at this hearing to do something.
Yeah.
To act like we're at a war, because we are. Foreign terrorist organization designation for the Taliban. That's a good thing.
Now, that is exactly right. He did say that those numbers were pretty serious, and I did look those up because, of course, my family's been impacted by this. My brother was involved with drugs, and that led to a downfall that we are still dealing with, right? And many other families are like ours going through it as well. And the number is not abating. The number is growing. You see it here. This was a number from the CDC. If you go over, they're telling us that life expectancy dropped for the second year in a row in 2021. And they're saying that it may be dropping again, right? It's continuing to go down. This is kind of old number, but if you scroll down here, they tell us that the declines in life expectancy since 2019, of course, driven largely by the pandemic. Yeah, right. Yeah, COVID deaths contributed, the ones that they're classifying as that type of death. They say nearly 3/4 or 74% of the decline from 2019 to 2020, and a 50% of the decline after that, okay, from 2020 to 2021. Those are the recent numbers. However, 16% of the decline in life expectancy from 20 to 21 can be attributed to an increase in deaths from accidents and unintentional injuries. Drug overdose deaths account for nearly half of all the unintentional injury deaths. 109,000 overdose deaths in the 1-year period ending in March 2022. Right. And a lot of this is coming across the border. Most of it, right, is coming from there. As Lindsey Graham said, lots of this is coming from China, and it is turning into a big problem that is literally resulting in the decline of life expectancy. This is a screenshot from Google. You can see on the blue graph there, that is the downfall from 2020 to 2021, and it's continuing apparently down. We'll see if it juts back up as we get more data from the last 2022 year, but doesn't look good, right? And our Congress is still just screwing around on this thing. The border is worse than it's ever been, and they're still twiddling their thumbs there at the White House. So Merrick Garland's going to get asked about it. We'll go back to Lindsey Graham.
5 is death by fentanyl poisoning. What are we doing?
Nothing.
What is that something? So I hope we'll recommit ourselves, Mr. Chairman, at this hearing to do something. Act like we're at a war, because we are. Foreign terrorist organization designation for the Taliban. That's a good thing. Other groups. How about making drug cartels in Mexico and other places foreign terrorist organizations under U.S. law, so we can go deeper and prosecute those who help these people poison America?
DOJ responsibility.
We're adrift as a nation. We're not taking the crime problem as seriously as we should. The world is on fire. We say that Putin's engaged in crimes against humanity. I agree with that statement, but we're not giving jets to the Ukrainians to defend themselves against the crime.
Oh, great. Ukraine.
So we got to up our game. And I hope
it's like 3 separations from Ukraine. What was that game? Like 7 separations from Kevin Bacon or something like that. You can play that game with Ukraine.
By this hearing, we will have a recommitment to convince the American people that we're going to keep you safe, that we're going to have policies to deal with the poisoning of America from fentanyl, that we're going to hold Mexico and other countries accountable, that most of this stuff comes from China, and enough is enough. We're going after those who are killing our kids from fentanyl. Gitmo. This administration let 2 detainees out of Gitmo.
All right, so they're just going to continue to ramble on. Lindsey Graham, of course, will just sit there again. America is adrift. Who has been in Congress as long as Lindsey Graham, right? He's kind of up there. He's kind of, he's been around there for a long time, and the country, everything is just getting worse year after year after year, and they're not doing anything about it. So, all right, Attorney General Garland is going to get a lot of questions, and we are going to go through each one of these. They're about 7 to 8 minutes apiece. Okay, so we've got just a lot of fun, and they are fired up. Like they are, I don't know how much caffeine they all had, but they're a lot of fun. But we're going to give our proper attention to Attorney General Merrick Garland, who is going to give us an opening statement and explain, right? Biden has been in office for a couple of years now, and so they've got a lot of policies implemented. We're sort of, over halftime now. He's gearing up for the second half before he runs again. We'll see whether that comes to fruition or not. And so it's a good time to assess what the DOJ has done. And boy, we have covered a lot of it over here over the last several years. In fact, it's sort of one of the main pillars of content here is what is the DOJ doing? What are the FBI agents doing in any way, shape, or form? What different criminal prosecutions are taking place out of the Southern District of New York or the DC Circuit Court or any one of the Court of Appeals because something's going up? It doesn't matter, but it all goes back to this guy. So what has he been up to? Attorney General Merrick Garland, floor is yours.
I now ask the Attorney General to please stand and raise his right hand. Affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
It better be, Mayor.
The record reflects that the
You're
Attorney
under
General
oath.
answered in the affirmative, and now you're invited to proceed with your opening statement.
All right, let's hear what he has to say. Turn your microphone on there, Merrick. It's the big button right in front of you.
Got it.
Thank
you.
All right,
Appreciate
you got it. Good job.
Good morning, Chair Durbin, Ranking Member Graham, and
That's
distinguished
great.
members of this committee.
See how this goes.
Every day, the 115,000 employees of the Justice Department work tirelessly to fulfill our mission to uphold the rule of law,
115,000 people.
and to protect civil rights. Every day,
Government
our FBI,
prosecutors.
ATF, and DEA agents and our deputy U.S. Marshals put their lives on the line
Gross.
to disrupt threats and respond to crises.
Okay,
Every day,
every day.
department employees counter complex threats to our national security. They fiercely protect the civil rights of our citizens.
Oh, yeah?
They pursue accountability for environmental harms
In the emails
They
from the
prosecute
FBI to
crimes
Twitter, those
that victimize
civil rights?
workers, consumers, and taxpayers, and they defend our country's democratic institutions. And every day, in everything they do, the employees of the Justice Department adhere to and uphold the rule of law that is the foundation of our system of government. Thank you for an opportunity to discuss our work.
Good. All right. What are you going to be
First,
reporting
upholding the
on?
rule of law.
All right.
When I began my tenure as Attorney General, I said it would be my mission to reaffirm the norms that have guided the Justice Department for nearly 50 years. I did so because those norms matter now more than ever to our democracy.
Okay.
The health of our democracy requires that the Justice Department treat like cases alike and that we apply the law in a way that respects the Constitution.
Okay. Oh my gosh. All right. I'm going to try not to pause this every couple of minutes because we've got just so much to get to. However, we have a clear case of compare and contrast here with the classified documents. One entity got raided, the other did not. One was leaked to the media day in and day out. We had photographs of classified documents splayed all over the floor. We had just this caterwauling from everybody in the DOJ or sort of them talking to the people in the media about what a catastrophe this was. All of that was okay for Trump, but none of it was okay for Biden. And arguably, he had a worse situation. These were documents from when he was a vice president. And so we have clear double standards. And this situation has existed in more cases than we can get into at this moment. But it's just outstanding to listen to these people talk like they are doing things with an even-keeled uniformity that is beyond reproach.
It requires that as much as possible, we speak through our work and our filings in court.
We've heard that
so
many
that we're
times.
not-
Unless it gets leaked to the Washington Post, right? They do leak this stuff repeatedly.
Citizens. And the survival of our democracy requires that we stand firmly against attempts to undermine the rule
Now, there's
of
Amy
law,
Klobuchar. She's
both at
texting
home
somebody.
and abroad.
And I don't know
I am
why
proud of
C-SPAN
the
cut to
work
her.
that the department has done on
She's
each of
texting
these
somebody.
fronts.
Huh.
We are strengthening the norms to protect the department's independence and
Probably.
integrity.
What question should I
We are
ask Merrick
securing
today?
convictions for a wide range of criminal conduct related to the January 6th attack on the Capitol. We are disrupting, investigating, and prosecuting violence and threats of violence, targeting those who serve the public.
Okay, so January 6th was still less than 1,000 prosecutions as far as we can tell. And they may have added more, but it's around 1,000. Okay, 1,000 cases 1,000 cases. The year is 2023. That's a big win for you guys. 1,000 cases. Most of those were just basic misdemeanor cases. Many of those were nonviolent. The ones that were violent, even a subsection of those were not really violent. Some of the violence was throwing water bottles at individuals who were officers, getting hit with maybe empty water bottles. We don't know. But J6 is their big victory. It's like their trophy. They went on a hunt. They got a bunch of MAGA Republicans, and so they're just going to parade that around in front of the majority party, which is in this case is the Democrats.
And we are working closer than ever with our Ukrainian partners in defense of democracy, justice, and the rule of law. We will continue to do so for as long as it takes. Second, keeping our country safe. The Justice Department is using every resource at our disposal to keep our country safe. We are working to counter, disrupt, and prosecute threats posed by nation states, terrorist groups, radicalized individuals, and cyber criminals. And together with our partners across the country, we are continuing to combat the rise in violent crime that began in 2020. All 94 of our U.S. attorneys' offices are working alongside their state and local partners to pursue district-specific violent crime reduction strategies. The department's grant-making components are providing financial assistance to local law enforcement agencies. At the same time, they are supporting community-led violence intervention efforts. And our law enforcement components are working with state, local, tribal, and territorial counterparts to apprehend the most dangerous fugitives and seize illegal drugs and illegal guns. For example, last year, DEA and its partners seized enough fentanyl-laced pills and powder to kill every single American.
Where'd that come from?
We are also aggressively prosecuting the crimes that inflict economic harm on the American people. We are prioritizing the prosecution of schemes that impact older Americans and vulnerable populations, as well as schemes involving pandemic and procurement fraud. In our corporate criminal enforcement, we are prioritizing and securing individual accountability. And we are vigorously enforcing our antitrust laws. Our enforcement actions have already resulted in the blocking or abandonment of mergers that would have stifled competition and harmed consumers. Third, protecting civil rights. Protecting civil rights was a founding purpose of the Justice Department, and it remains an urgent priority.
Yeah, right.
The department's storied Civil Rights Division has been at the forefront of efforts to protect the right to vote, ensure constitutional policing, and enforce federal statutes prohibiting discrimination in all of its forms.
Hey, how about free speech there, Mayor? It's kind of an important one. The first one out there. Why was the DOJ and the FBI colluding with one another and a bunch of big tech platforms to silence and censor Americans? Why was that happening? It had to do with COVID. It had to do with elections. I don't know what else it had to do with, but anything else presumably that was problematic, maybe under the guise of national security, was censored. So those are pretty important constitutional rights. Like, okay, that's nice that you're caring about all of them. We want all of them protected, but you can't highlight a couple that you did a good job on and then forget about the biggest one that you buried and enabled to be buried through your subordinates, Christopher Wray and others who enable your policies.
But now, protecting civil rights is also the responsibility of every Justice Department employee every single day.
Give me a break.
We are working across components to combat hate crimes and improve hate crimes reporting. In the wake of the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe and Casey, the department has pulled together to protect reproductive freedom under federal law. And the department recognizes that communities of color, indigenous communities, and low-income communities often bear the brunt of harm caused by environmental crime, pollution, and climate change. So we are prioritizing cases that will have the greatest impact on the communities most burdened by those harms.
Okay, so it sounds like they're going to prioritize criminal prosecutions based on race, based on victims, but based on race, right? Or ethnicity or other inequitable features. So, like if you're a victim of corporate crimes and you're a white person from an equitable, I don't know, from some other background that they, say is sort of outside of a priority category, you will fall to the bottom of the list. They may get to you, but as long as they focus on the other prosecutions first, right? So it's almost like two tiers of justice. Did I hear that right? Let's back that up again.
Of the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe and Casey, the department has pulled together to protect reproductive freedom under federal law. And the department recognized that communities of color, indigenous communities, and low-income communities often bear the brunt of harm caused by environmental crime, pollution, and climate change. So we are prioritizing cases that will have the greatest impact on the communities most burdened by those harms. I am proud of the work of
I think that means he's going to be saying that if there's some entity that's causing environmental harms to a white community, that is lower priority than other entities that cause environmental harm to disadvantaged communities or lower income or inequitable communities, whatever that means. I don't know how else to hear that, but okay.
Department's employees, the work they have done to uphold the rule of law, to keep our country safe, and to protect civil rights. The department's career workforce has demonstrated extraordinary resilience after years of unprecedented challenges. They have conducted themselves with utmost integrity, without regard to any partisan or other inappropriate influences, and they have done their work with a singular commitment to the public we all serve. The employees of the Justice Department are dedicated, skilled, and patriotic public servants. It is my honor to represent them here today. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I look forward to your questions.
Thanks,
All right.
Attorney General.
So a pretty big deal, right? He doesn't come and do this often. This is a moment where we're going to get some good opportunities to get some clarity on a lot of the most pressing issues that we've talked about here. So we're going to start off with Ted Cruz, and this is a fun one, boy. This one is hot. So we're going to get right to it. Ted Cruz is Lion Ted in the Senate Judiciary Committee, and he is fired up. And what I like about this is the old switcheroo. Kind of has a slow start. Then he comes in hot. Let's listen.
Roll call, just to alert the members, and Senator Cruz is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General, welcome. As you know, as I observed at your confirmation hearing, you had built a long record on the Federal Court of Appeals and a reputation of being relatively nonpartisan.
Yeah, nice.
And so I had hopes that your tenure as Attorney General would continue that record.
Oh.
I have to say I'm deeply disappointed in what the last 2 years have shown. In my judgment, the Department of Justice has been politicized to the greatest extent I've ever seen in this country. And it has done a discredit to the Department of Justice, to the FBI, and to the administration of law in this country. Let me start with a simple question. General Garland, is it a federal crime to protest outside of a judge's home with the intent of influencing that judge as to a pending case?
The answer to that is yes, but I also want to at least respond to your characterization of the department, which I vigorously disagree with. I believe the men and women of the department pursue their work every single day in a nonpartisan and an appropriate
General
way.
Garland, there are thousands of men and women who do that. And I'll tell you, I hear from prosecutors at the Department of Justice. I hear from agents of the FBI who are angry that it is treated as the enforcement arm for the DNC instead of upholding the law in a fair and even-handed manner. So you are right. There are thousands of men and women that are doing the job, but it is the political leadership that you're responsible for. So you just said, yes, it's a crime to protest at the home of a judge. Same goes for jurors, by the way, with the intent of influencing a case. But in the wake of the leak of the Dobbs decision, when rioters descended on the homes of 6 Supreme Court justices, night after night after night, you did nothing. The department did nothing. When extremist groups like Ruth Sent Us and Jane's Revenge openly organized campaigns of harassment at the homes of justices, you sat on your hands. when these same groups posted online information about where the justices worship, or their home addresses, or where their kids went to school, you again sat on your hands and did nothing. Your failure to act to protect the safety of the justices and their families was an obvious product of political bias. You agree with Roe versus Wade, you disagree with the Dobbs decision. And the Department of Justice under this president was perfectly happy to refuse to enforce the law and allow threats of violence. And as you know, those threats finally materialized with Nicholas Roski, a 26-year-old man from California who traveled across the country, was arrested outside the home of Justice Kavanaugh, armed with a handgun, a knife, and burglary tools. And he said he came there to kill Justice Kavanaugh because he was enraged by the leaked opinion. Now, of course, you're prosecuting that individual for attempted murder, but did you bring even a single case to enforce this law, or did the Department of Justice decide this law doesn't apply if it's harassing justices for an opinion we don't like?
When the Dobbs draft was leaked, I did something no Attorney General in the history of the department had ever done before. For the first time in history, I ordered United States Marshals 24/7 to defend every residence of every justice.
Well, Garland, as a judge, you're familiar with asking counsel to answer a question.
I am answering.
Has the Department of Justice enforced this statute? Have you brought a single case against any of these protesters threatening the justices under 18 U.S.C. Section 1507? Have you brought even one?
Senator, you asked me whether I sat on my hands, and quite the opposite. I sent 70 United States Marshals.
Let me try again.
To defend.
Has the Department of Justice brought even a single case under this statute? It's a yes/no question. It's not a give a speech on the other things you did.
The job of the United States Marshals is to defend the lives.
So the answer is no.
Is to defend the lives of the justices, and that's their number one priority. They have.
Why are you unwilling to say no? The answer is no. You know it's no. I know it's no. Everyone in this hearing room knows it's no. You're not willing to answer a question. Have you brought a case under this statute? Yes or no?
As far as I know, we haven't, and what we have done is defended the lives of the justices with over 70 U.S. Marshals.
How do you decide which criminal statutes the DOJ enforces and which one it doesn't?
Well, based on politics, we can answer that one. I mean, for the January 6th cases, remember, they came up with a whole website of people, plastered their names on there so we could see the indictments, the charges. They made it a red scarlet letter so that if you were even closely involved with J6, that even Biden came out and called it MAGA extremists, his gates of hell speech, right? They tarred and feathered everybody who was even thinking about going on that day, including people who were not even there. But if it's people who are activists on their favored political perspective, if it's Antifa, if it's the protest around the Summer of Love in 2020, you've got Kamala Harris who's posting tweets to get people literally out of custody, raising bail so that they can post bond. But if it's people who are protesting the justices, yeah, Merrick Garland's going to come out there and he's going to, I deployed a bunch of people. Yeah, I don't doubt that. He doesn't want a bunch of Supreme Court justices to get killed or hurt or anything like that. He is in charge after all, but he's not going to prosecute them, right? They're the blue team, man. They're good to go. You got to be on the red team in order for the handcuffs to apply.
The United States Marshals know that they have full authority.
I recognize you want to give a separate speech.
No, I don't want to.
How do you decide which statutes you enforce and which ones you don't?
The Marshals on scene make that determination in light of the priority of defense.
The Marshals do not make a determination over whether to prosecute. You, the Attorney General, make a determination, and you spent 20 years as a judge, and you're perfectly content with justices being afraid for their children's lives, and you did nothing to prosecute it. Let's shift to another area.
Can I answer the question?
No, you cannot. You have refused to answer the question.
I am answering your question. The Attorney General does not decide whether to arrest.
How did you choose not to enforce this statute?
The Marshals on scene.
Marshals don't make that decision.
They do make the decision of whether to make an arrest.
Prosecute someone? No, they don't.
If they make a,
Marshals do not have prosecution.
If they make an,
did you see that face from Mayor? Whoa, man, he was fired up. Let's see if we can freeze frame that there for a minute. Oh man, he doesn't get fired up like that often. There it was. Oh, I think there it is. Yeah, we got it, baby. There it is. He's pissed, man. Look at that one. Not happy about it. You can see it. Don't you dare tell me he's unhappy. We got it. All right, let's back it up just to get it one more time.
And you did nothing to prosecute it. Let's shift to another area.
Can I answer the question?
Yeah.
No, you
The Attorney
cannot. You
General-
have refused to answer the
I am
question.
answering your question. The
How did
Attorney
you
General
choose-
does not decide whether to
How
arrest.
did you choose not to enforce this statute?
The marshals on
Marshals
scene,
don't make that decision.
they do make the decision of whether to make
To
an arrest.
prosecute someone? No, they don't.
If they make an
Marshals do not have prosecution.
if they make an arrest,
All right,
then it goes
let's
to the
change
marshal.
topics because our
great.
time is limited. We've also seen across the country violent attacks at crisis pregnancy centers by similar left-wing terrorist groups, including one graffiti of a firebomb building said Jane was here. There have been attacks all over the country. And yet, the Department of Justice has not brought these violent criminals to justice. You contrast that. If you're a violent criminal and you attack a crisis pregnancy center, that is not a priority in the Biden Department of Justice. Contrast that to Mark Houck, who's a pro-life activist. He's a sidewalk counselor. And he had an altercation with someone who allegedly interfered with his son's personal space and threatened his son, and he pushed him. Now, in an ordinary world, pushing someone would be maybe a simple misdemeanor assault, but not under the Biden Department of Justice. If you're a pro-life activist, what can you expect? Well, in this instance, according to Mr. Houck's wife, 24 agents clad in body armor and ballistic helmets and shields and a battering ram showed up at his house pointing rifles at his family. Why do you send 24 agents in body armor to arrest a sidewalk counselor who happens to be pro-life, but you don't devote resources to prosecute people who are violently firebombing crisis pregnancies?
It is a priority of the department to prosecute and investigate and find the people who are doing those firebombings. They are doing it at night and in secret. So, and we have found one group which we did prosecute.
You found one. How many have there been? How many attacks?
There have been a lot, and if you have any information specifically as to
Whoa.
who those people are, we
Let me
would
ask
be
you
glad.
something.
We would be
Whoa.
glad to have
Personally
that.
authorized 20.
Whoa, he was saying if you have any information, he's saying, Ted, are you involved in those firebombings? Do you know anything about these? Maybe you can help us find all of these criminals if you're so interested in it.
20 agents go into Mr. Houck's house, and he offered to turn himself in through counsel, but you didn't want that. The Department of Justice wanted to make a show of it. Did you personally authorize it? And do you want to apologize to Mrs. Houck and her 7 children for being terrorized?
The decisions about how to do that are made at the level of the FBI agents on scene.
Did you know about it?
I did not know about it until the way you're describing it, and my understanding is the FBI disagrees with that description.
Was it a mistake?
Senator's time has expired. I'm going to allow the witness to respond to any of the questions that were asked.
Was it a mistake?
Okay, here.
I'm going to chair the committee, Senator. I'm sorry you're not.
Wait a minute. Okay, we got
You
to.
said you'd allow him to respond. I repeated the question I asked, which is, was it a mistake to send 20 agents to arrest him at the crack of dawn?
You had your time and more
You just
than
said you're going to allow him to respond. You just said, I'm going to allow him to respond.
All right, so you can hear this. So they can actually, you can hear them saying, this is hysterical. Okay, so we're going to do the old, did he get it in under the clock? I think he got it in under the clock. Here, let's check this one.
to any of the questions that were asked.
Was it a mistake?
Wait, hold on.
I'm going to allow the witness to respond to any of the questions.
Back up.
I did not know about it until the way you're describing it. And
Okay, this is like slow motion on the Super Bowl. Before the chair hits the gavel and calls time, all right, we have to ask ourselves, did Ted Cruz get the question in? Because he repeats the question. So before the end of time, does Ted get the question in? Let's listen. Now, we can't, I don't have fancy replay graphics, but listen close.
my understanding is the FBI disagrees with that description.
Was it a mistake?
Senator's time has expired.
Here it
I'm
is.
going to allow the witness to respond to any of the questions that were asked.
Was it a
He got it in. He got it in. Listen. right in. Was it a mistake right before the click?
Time has expired. I'm going to allow the witness to respond.
Yeah, he got it in. All right, so that's good. So Ted Cruz got the question in, and let's see.
The decisions about how to do tactical arrests are made by the FBI agents in the field. The FBI has publicly stated that it disagrees with the description you gave of what happened in that example. That's the best I can answer.
He got it in. Yeah, he got the question in, and he got the question answered. So, all right. So that, my friends, was Ted Cruz. And boy, that was hot, right? He was fired up on that one, no doubt about it. So we're going to now sort of do a little bit of a detour on this, because this story broke this morning, and I wish it would have broken last night because they could have asked about it. But this is a very interesting thing that I saw develop over from the Washington Post. And here's what they write. Published March 1st. This is an exclusive from the Washington Post. They say, behind the scenes deliberations, an exclusive look behind the scenes. They say there was a showdown, in fact, between the FBI and prosecutors, and they argued over Trump. It wasn't this unilateral, everybody was holding hands and singing Kumbaya and just going to go prosecute the former president. So months of disputes between Justice Department prosecutors and FBI agents occurred over how to try to recover the classified documents. It even led to a showdown. Now, prosecutors argued that new evidence suggested Trump was knowingly concealing the secret documents, and they urged the FBI to conduct a surprise raid at the property, right? So all of Merrick Garland's 115,000 underlings were all just salivating to go raid Trump. But two senior FBI officials who would be in charge of leading the search resisted the plan as being too combative, obviously, and they proposed instead to seek Trump's permission to search the property. Could have asked for it. Now, prosecutors ultimately prevailed in the dispute, one of several previously unreported clashes in a tense tug-of-war between the two arms of the Justice Department over how aggressively to pursue a criminal investigation of the former president. The FBI conducted the unprecedented raid on August 8th, recovering more than 100 classified items, including other materials about nukes. Yeah. So starting in May, FBI agents in the Washington field office had sought to slow the probe, urging caution, given its extraordinary sensitivity. Some of the field agents wanted to shutter the criminal investigation altogether in June, after Trump's legal team asserted a search had been conducted. The idea of closing the probe was something that was not something that was discussed, but this account reveals for the first time the disagreements that stemmed out of the potential pitfalls of raiding the former president. But of course, we know they did it. Both sides were mindful of the scrutiny, but prosecutors ultimately prevailed. None of them commented on it. Okay? So the point is, even the FBI had concerns about this. The FBI was worried that this might cause some pretty catastrophic problems. And of course, it did. Not to mention the fact that this was something that turned into a much bigger headache, given the fact that now Joe Biden has his own classified documents scandal. And so we're going to continue on. Now, Josh Hawley carries us through in much the same vein on the line of questioning that's going out to Attorney General Merrick Garland. And for this, we're going to change our feed just a little bit. And here is Josh Hawley, who's going to carry us through the next series of questions.
General Garland, let me just ask you, does your department have a problem with anti-Catholic bias?
Our department protects all religions and all ideologies. It does not have any bias against any religion of any kind.
Well, you could have surprised me, because given the resources that you are expending and the apparently intelligence assets that you are deploying against Catholics, it appears, and other people of faith, while simultaneously turning a blind eye while people are executed gang style on the streets of our cities, including in my home state, your answer frankly surprises me. Let's talk about the Mark Houck case, for example. You've been asked about this already today, and frankly, your answers really astound me. This is a case where a Catholic pro-life demonstrator, father, was accused of disorderly conduct in front of an abortion center.
We covered that
local
case here.
prosecutor, the Philadelphia district attorney, who is a Democrat, a liberal, very progressive, declined to prosecute.
Everybody
There was
did.
a private suit that got dismissed.
No basis for it at all.
And then after all of that, your Justice Department
State,
sent
county.
between 20 and 30 armed agents in the early morning hours to the Houck's private residence to arrest this guy after he had offered to turn himself in voluntarily. Here's
Show
the
of force
photo.
to
Once
embarrass
again,
him.
you can see the long guns, you
Armed
can see
agents.
the ballistic shields.
Watch it,
You can
Catholics.
see that they're wearing bulletproof vests. Why did the Justice Department do this? Why did you send 20 to 30 SWAT-style agents and a SWAT-style team to this guy's house when everybody else had declined to prosecute and he'd offered to turn himself in?
Determination.
Because he's a Catholic and he is a right-winger insurrectionist, according to people like Merrick.
Of how to make arrests under arrest warrants are made based by the tactical operators in the district. They are not.
But you surely looked into it by this point, right? You know the answer, surely.
All I know is what the FBI has said, which is that they made decisions on the ground as what was safest and easiest.
So
they
you're-
do not agree with your description of what happened on the scene.
You don't agree with my description. I'm pointing out what the photo is. There are agents here who have long guns and ballistic
the
shields. Let's take a
picture.
look at the hardened criminals that your Justice Department sent these armed agents to go terrorize on that morning. Here they are. Here they are at Mass. Here's the 7 children with Mr. Houck and his wife. In this early morning, they were all at
Terrorists.
home. Mrs. Houck has said
Insurrectionists.
repeatedly the children were screaming. They feared for their lives. You got these agents demanding that he come out. They've got the guns, she said, pointing at the house and at
Unbelievable.
them. He has offered to turn himself in. And this is who you go to terrorize.
Now, did you see this young man here who did an outstanding job? Can we just shout out this young man who put the sign up here?
Are at Mass.
This guy right here.
Here's the
Look at
7
him.
children
Nice job, bro.
with Mr. Houck and his wife.
He knows this is a zinger.
In this early morning, they were all at home. Mrs. Houck has said repeatedly the children were screaming. They feared for their lives. You got these agents.
He was having fun with that. He was waiting for the cue from Hawley. He's like, all right, I'm ready with the board. And he throws it up there. He's like, oh, this is going to be good. And then Hawley just goes for it. Look at these terrorists here, Merrick. And he can't even contain himself. He's so happy about it.
Agents demanding that he come out. They've got the guns, she said, pointing at the house and at them.
Good for
He
him.
has offered to turn himself in. And this is who you go to terrorize.
Nice job, young
What's
man.
really interesting to me is this seems to directly contradict
Nailed it.
your own memorandum about the use of force at the Justice Department. You say officers may use only the force that is objectively reasonable to effectively control an incident. Are you telling me that in your opinion as Attorney General, it was objectively necessary to use 20 or 30 SWAT-style agents with long guns and ballistic shields for these people?
What I'm saying is that decisions about how to go about this were made on the ground by FBI agents.
So you're saying you don't know?
I'm saying what I just said.
Which is that
those
you're
dec-
abdicating responsibility?
I'm not abdicating
Then
responsibility.
give me the answer. Do you think, in your opinion, you are the Attorney General of the United States? You are in charge of the Justice Department. And yes, sir, you are responsible. So give me an answer.
The FBI does not agree with your description.
I'm not asking about the FBI. You are the Attorney General. Give me your answer. Do you think that it was objectively reasonable and they followed your guidelines in sending 20 to 30 armed agents to terrorize these people? Yes or no?
The facts I have, which are those presented by the FBI, are not consistent with your description.
So you think it was reasonable?
I'm saying the facts are not as you describe.
What, that the children weren't there? That there weren't long guns there? That there
Facts.
weren't agents? What do you dispute? What's the factual premise you dispute? Be
FBI
specific.
said they don't agree with your description of
Be specific. They don't agree with what?
of how many agents, of the agents who were there, and of what their roles were. They don't agree.
Do you know
That's
the
all I can
jury
say.
in this case acquitted Mr. Houck? As I'm sure you're aware. Do you know how long it took him?
I am aware, and we respect the decision of the jury.
Do you know how long it took them?
I don't know.
1 hour.
Oh,
1 hour.
oh.
Philadelphia District
How do
Attorney
you feel about
declines to
that?
prosecute. The private suit's dismissed. You use an unbelievable show of force with guns that I just note liberals usually decry. We're supposed to hate long guns and assault-style weapons. You're happy to deploy them against Catholics and innocent children. Happy to. And then you haul him into court and a jury acquits him in 1 hour.
Brutal.
I just suggest to you that that is a disgraceful performance by your Justice Department and a disgraceful use of resources.
True.
I notice a pattern, though.
Fact check, true.
The FBI field office in Richmond on the 23rd of January of this year issued a memorandum in which they advocated for, and I quote, the exploration of new avenues for tripwire and source development against traditionalist Catholics, it's their language, including those who favor the Latin Mass. Attorney General, are you cultivating sources and spies in Latin Mass parishes and other Catholic parishes around the
Yeah,
country?
like mine.
Justice Department does not do that. It does not do investigations based on religion. I
don't
saw the
believe you.
documents you have.
What'd you
It's
do about it?
appalling. It's appalling. I'm in complete
I don't believe
agreement
you.
with you. I understand that the FBI has withdrawn it and is now looking into how this could ever have happened.
How did it happen?
That's what they're looking into. But I'm totally in agreement with you. That document is appalling.
I'll tell you how it happened. This memorandum, which is supposed to be intelligent, cites extensively the Southern Poverty Law Center, which goes on to identify all of these different Catholics as being part of hate groups. Is this how the FBI, under your direction and leadership, is this how they do their intelligence work? They look at left-wing advocacy groups to target Catholics? Is this what's going on? I mean, clearly it is. How is this happening?
The FBI is not targeting Catholics. And as I've said, this is an inappropriate memorandum, and it doesn't reflect the methods that the FBI is supposed to be using. Should not be relying on any single organization without doing its own work.
We keep hearing that same tired line over and over again, that's not reflective of how we do things. We played the clip yesterday from Christopher Wray, and Christopher Wray got scolded by the FISA court judge, the person overseeing the FISA court. And they said that in their memorandum that this was horrendous, what the FBI was doing, what the DOJ was doing, that they were abusing the court process. They were violating Americans' rights all over the place, hand over fist, and nobody cared about it. They said it was reprehensible. And Christopher Wray, his response was, yeah, but we fixed it all. Like, that was the bad time. Like, we've changed. We've changed now. We're better, thanks to my great leadership at the FBI. And that's essentially what Merrick Garland is saying here. Yeah, that memo is a problem. I mean, we did say that stuff. However, that's not reflective of the general totality of what we're trying to accomplish at the DOJ. All right, well, we're not talking about that. Like, you might be, your version of a nice guy who's trying to do justice in America, whatever that is to you. But we're talking about specifics here. And you can't always default to just it's not reflective of our agency, okay? If all of these little hits against your agency's credibility add up over time, there is no more credibility.
Let me just ask you, as my time expires here, a very direct question. How many informants do you have in Catholic churches across America?
I don't know, and I don't believe we have any informants aimed at Catholic churches. We have a rule against investigations based on First Amendment activity, and Catholic churches are obviously First Amendment activity. But I don't know the specific answer to your question.
You don't know the specifics of anything, it seems, but apparently on your watch, this Justice Department is targeting Catholics, targeting people of faith, specifically for their faith views. And Mr. Attorney General, I'll just say to you, it's a disgrace.
Senator Coons?
Nice. All right, so that is Josh Hawley. And another one, man, he really let Mayor have that one. And of course, always delicious and fun when we get to see that. And so we've got more coming up. Josh Hawley, of course, he referenced Mark Houck. And Mark Houck, we learn a little bit more about that verdict and what happened there. This is the update from the Catholic News Agency. They say that he was cleared of the FACE Act charges in a rebuke to the Justice Department's aggressive prosecution. Here is Mark and some of his family. You can see insurrectionist terrorists outside the courthouse escaping criminal penalties. But he was acquitted. Happened on Monday, June 30th. not too long ago. Daughter 14 and 12, along with his son, celebrating the verdict. Wow. All right. You see here, pro-life activist Mark Houck was found not guilty on Monday. Supporters of the Catholic father of 7 cried and hugged one another outside the court after the verdict was read. He said it's a relief. He feels overjoyed and blessed, and he couldn't have done it without faith. Here's something he said.
Tell me how your faith has brought you and your family through this process.
We couldn't have done it without faith. You know, honestly, from day one, the moment of the arrest, when I found out that this was even an issue, it was all a leap of faith, stepping out and trusting in God and His protection. And He's been there every step of the way, through His people, through God's people. There's been so many prayers answered, but just His peace that, you know, was beyond understanding, as we know, and the joy that was filling our heart that God would choose my wife and children worthy to suffer in this way for the cause, for the movement, for the church, for the body of Christ. So, yeah, we just felt privileged, and faith has brought us to that point where we feel that. So we've grown in faith. We've asked God to give us greater faith. And through today in this process, through Thomas More, through Brian McMonagle's yes, we have greater faith and trust in God than ever. So we move forward with great confidence.
Yeah, he's a free man after a ridiculous prosecution that should have never happened. But of course, we know it wasn't about justice. It wasn't about anything that they were really interested in, you know, about upholding the law or any of that stuff. It was a political prosecution like many others that we have seen come out of the Justice Department. And so there will be more on that. Now, we've got Tom Cotton coming up. But first, my friends, let's talk about our friends over at Field of Greens. Tom Cotton's fired up, but that means we got to get our Field of Greens in and consumed so that we can be prepared for Tom Cotton. And, you know, we are all kind of sick and tired of those leftover pandemic pounds hanging around, you know. How sick are you, though, of all those ads for those weight loss pills and the fad diets and all of that stuff? We've all been there. We've done that. And we know that they don't work. But you know what does? Eating 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. You do that, and the weight would probably fall right off. But first of all, vegetables, not a fan. And fruit, who's got time to prepare all that every day? Instead, let's talk about Field of Greens. Now, Field of Greens is a science-backed formula, very specific fruits and vegetables that you're not going to find in any other product. Proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you can burn calories the faster way and lose weight the healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand that is backed by a better health promise. Yes, you'll look healthier, you'll feel healthier, but the greater proof is going to come at your next doctor's visit when you go there and the doctor says, wow, you've lost weight, whatever you're doing, keep it up. And so let's get you started. Why don't you go over to fieldofgreens.com today and get your real organic superfood. And when you check out, don't forget to use code Robert. So you can save 15% off your entire purchase, okay? 15% off this real organic superfood. I have mine. I take it. It tastes delicious. It doesn't taste weird. It's got your daily servings of fruits and vegetables. And the vegetables and the fruits want to be eaten. That's why they're here on this planet, so they can help you be healthy and well. And so go to fieldofgreens.com. Don't forget to use code Robert and get yours today. All right, my friends. And so we have Tom Cotton coming up, and Tom Cotton is also fired up. We have a whole sort of a slew of senators who are not playing around on this. And so let's get Tom Cotton queued up.
Attorney General, I want to explore the dangerous crisis at our southern border and your role in causing that crisis. Asylum traditionally is reserved for people who face things like religious persecution, persecution for their political beliefs, or violence because of their race or ethnicity. In June of 2021, you changed the department's asylum rules so that it could apply to individuals with significant gang violence in their home country. Is that 2021 interpretation still in place?
It is. It reinstates a previous interpretation that the department had of the same asylum rules, yes.
Okay. Do you know the most recent murder rate in Honduras?
I'm sure it's enormously high.
It's 36 per 100,000 people. What about Colombia?
I don't know.
23 per 100,000. Guatemala?
Again, I don't know, but I believe it's quite high.
17 per 100,000. What about Mexico, right across our southern border?
I also think it's very high.
28 per 100,000.
Yikes.
So I have to say, since you rewrote the rules of asylum based on the perceived degree of violence in these countries, a little surprised you didn't know those, but let's look a little bit closer to home. Do you know the murder rate in New Orleans last year?
I don't, but I want to be clear, this wasn't based on violence. This is based on threats specifically to individuals, on gangs, where the country was unable to protect the person. That's what it was about. It wasn't about violence in general.
Okay. Well, you're partly responsible for protecting Americans. So let's see. Honduras' government can protect its own people, except for 36 out of every 100,000 for murders. Guatemala, 17 out of every 100,000. The murder rate in New Orleans last year was 70 for every 100,000. What about St. Louis?
Again, it's very high. I think.
68 per 100,000. What about Baltimore?
Also very high.
58 per 100,000. Should American citizens in places like New Orleans and Baltimore and St. Louis begin to seek asylum in countries like Honduras and Guatemala under your asylum principles?
Again, I'm saying that the principle here is protection of specific individuals who are being threatened by the gang and where the local country is unwilling or unable to protect them.
So is the United States government and the city governments of St. Louis and Baltimore and New Orleans unwilling or unable to protect its own citizens?
I don't believe they're unwilling. They're doing everything that they can. We're supporting them in every way they can.
So are they
Examples
incompetent?
you're talking about are ones where they are unwilling to protect from gangs.
So, Mr. Attorney General, one of the reasons we have a crisis at our border where we have illegal aliens running to our border patrol, not away from our border patrol, is this interpretation of asylum, that anyone, anywhere who lives in a dangerous or poor country can come here and seek asylum, as opposed to seeking it, as is traditionally the case for things like persecution on religious belief or political practice. But let's move on. Let's move on, Mr. Attorney General.
But that's not the standard. I want to be clear.
I want to come back to a question that Senator Cornyn started. Your unprecedented memo in December of 2020 to direct your prosecutors not to pursue the most serious, readily provable offense. I have got numerous contacts in my office from your prosecutors who are shocked that you have overturned this decades-long bipartisan standard. You said this was about allocating resources. What resources are you talking about?
No prosecutor was directed to not bring a case again. In fact,
your memo specifically says that if they feel that it's not warranted, or only if the other offenses are not sufficient, they should not pursue what has been the standard for decades, generations of U.S. attorneys and their assistants.
I'm well aware of the standard because I helped write the standard originally.
Because it was a Carter administration standard, not specifically known for being tough on crime.
Well, it was the first time the principles of prosecution were reduced to a book which explained what they were. It was included in it. Every assistant U.S. attorney is able to use their discretion to bring these kinds of cases. No one's being directed to not do anything.
You specifically said that they should not pursue the most serious, readily provable offenses in cases where mandatory minimums are present because it's not warranted. You specifically said that.
But I said...
That's the law. What does mandatory mean?
I'm trying to say that...
Does it mean that prosecutors get a choice not to pursue it if you write the law in that way?
The memorandum said that cases of violent crime, which is specifically what you're asking me, are ones where, in fact, it's most likely that they should be bringing the highest and mandatory minimums.
Is it your assertion here that drug trafficking is not a violent crime?
No,
it's
and
built
also,
on an entire foundation and edifice of violence.
Yes, and it includes an exception in the same memorandum we're talking about for significant drug trafficking as well as for violent crime. That's right.
Your specific answer, I wrote it down here. I was so surprised by it. You said to Senator Cornyn, this is about allocating resources.
Yeah.
What resources are we allocating? If one of your assistant U.S. attorneys has some criminal lowlife who could be charged with 12 offenses, but they don't charge the two most serious readily provable offenses because of your memorandum, they're still charged with 10 offenses. They have to go to a grand jury. They have to go to trial. They have to have a pre-sentencing report. They have to have a sentencing hearing. How is that conserving resources that you don't charge them with the most serious readily provable offenses that would lock these lowlifes up for the longest time possible?
The lowlifes that you're worried about and have expressed worried about, the large drug traffickers, the violent criminals, they are to be charged to the max.
I ask again, what resources were you talking about? You said to Senator Cornyn specifically it was about allocating resources. What resources?
These include
January
our
6th.
investigators and how much we have to investigate in order to establish the
Yeah, the January
requirements
6th.
for mandatory minimums.
Yeah.
The prosecutors have to prove those cases.
They're still playing
The
Weird
judges
Waldo
have to
over
try
there.
those cases.
Have
and
you
the
seen this
jails
man?
that
Have you
to
seen
hold
this
those cases,
insurrectionist?
those individuals for
Well,
longer
if
term.
jails are, I don't see how jails could be a problem. You only have 158,000 prisoners now. 10 years ago, it was 219,000. Do you need more prisons?
Well, I
No.
think that
Kenny's an appropriator. I bet he could get
No,
you more.
we
I
don't
think,
need any more
many of the
prisons.
senators have complained that the jails are too filled.
They are.
That they're overcrowded, that we're not able to provide the level of protection and security for guards and for prisoners that we would like. But that is not what this is about. Again, I want to be clear. The memorandum was crystal clear that they are to charge the most serious provable offense in cases involving violent crime and drug trafficking.
Okay, let's turn to another example of you overriding Congress's will. Congress has repeatedly decided to impose stiffer penalties for crack cocaine than powder cocaine, done originally at the request of members of the Congressional Black Caucus, voted for by senators like Senator Durbin, the chairman of this committee. 10 years ago, they made change to that. They specifically kept the ratio higher, and they didn't make it retroactive. Now, you have directed your prosecutors, when they are dealing with crack cocaine, to charge it as if it was powder cocaine, something that this Congress has repeatedly refused to do, which we refused to do as recently as December when Senator Booker tried it on the floor and I blocked it.
Ooh.
How do you explain overriding Congress's decision on this distinction between crack and powder cocaine to suit your own policy preferences?
They don't care what Congress
The
says.
long-standing rule is that the Department of Justice uses its discretion in which charges to bring, regardless of which ones are available, which ones are to bring. Every bit of evidence we have is that there's no difference between powder and crack. Governor Hutchinson testified to that fact.
Those are legislative decisions. Those are not prosecutorial decisions.
Yeah, the Congress passes the law, right? The executive branch enforces the law. If the executive branch gets to decide what the law is, right, they get to say, well, we don't really want to do that, then they might as well just be a legislature, right? Congress says this is the will of the people. We have been empowered to be representatives of the people, and we're supposed to do their will. As laughable as that is, I know. And the idea of representation is also pretty laughable as well, because we kind of have a big Senate and a small Senate now. The point is, there is supposed to be representation so that the laws reflect the will of the people. If the executive branch just does whatever the heck they want on top of whatever Congress passes, then what do we need a Congress for? We might as well just have a dictator who gets to decide how it all works.
This Congress wants to do it. Maybe it will one day, and maybe I'll be outvoted. But those are legislative decisions. Those are not prosecutorial decisions. You said at your confirmation hearing that you had to follow the law as it was written, that the executive branch could not rewrite the law. What you're doing is rewriting the law. It's not a single prosecutor out on the front lines making one decision. You're directing every federal prosecutor to override the law that has been written by Congress.
We're using our discretion as to which charges to bring, in which circumstances, which ones are appropriate. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, you are exactly right. And so that's why the people who are protesting outside Kavanaugh's house in clear violation of the law are not being prosecuted. People like Mark Houck are. They are prosecuted, even though state and local city and county charges were all declined and private suits were also dismissed. So it feels like you may be a little bit weaponized and highly politicized, no?
It's a long-standing history of prosecutorial discretion in the United States.
Look at that face. Look at
Senator
that.
Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh,
Mr. Attorney
Tom
General.
Cotton.
History of prosecutorial
Here you go.
discretion
Here,
in the
this is
United
how we all
States.
feel right now. Right here, Tom Cotton. Spirit animal.
Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so we'll listen to a little bit of a Democrat just so you can see how this works.
Mr. Attorney General, aloha.
Aloha.
As I've sat listening to some of the questions, the phrase badgering the witness comes to mind, but I commend you
Badgering the witness, he's the Attorney General for the United States. He's supposed to answer questions for Congress. If the job's a little bit too hot for him, maybe he can resign.
for the calm way that you have comported yourself at this hearing. You have been accused of selective prosecution around the abortion issues. I want to note that since 1977, anti-choice extremists have been responsible for 11 murders, 26 attempted murders, 42 bombings, 194 arsons, and thousands of other criminal incidents by anti-choice extremists. And of course, we should prosecute all violence and threats of violence by those on both sides of the abortion issue, but isn't it the case that our prosecutorial focus should be on the most violent acts?
Well,
Attorney General?
look, we prosecute without respect to ideology, but we do focus on the most violent acts, the most dangerous actors.
Yeah, like the water bottle guy who threw a water bottle on January 6th. They had to bring the whole FBI together in order to go find that guy, track him down, prosecute him as a seditionist, insurrectionist, and so on and so forth. And so that was Hirono. We'll fast forward through her, and we'll pick back up with, we'll check in with our Senator Marsha Blackburn. I heard that she had some fun line of questioning here today.
There are one for people with conservative values, for parents, for people of faith. And then there is another tier of justice that applies to the Washington liberal elites, political elites. And what I want to do is dig down a little bit on how you and the department have applied this discretionary form of justice. It's something that concerns Tennesseans, and when I'm across the state, we have 95 counties. I visit each of them every year. And Mr. Attorney General, that comes up quite a bit. Much of it has come up in relation to the Dobbs decision. And the attacks and the violence there has increased from groups on the far left. It has not increased from pro-life groups. And since the Dobbs leak, there have been 70 pro-life pregnancy centers that were targeted. Only 2 of these activists have been indicted. There are 25 individuals that have been indicted under the FACE Act in just 5 months. So you see the disparity there. I appreciate you said that most of these attacks are carried out at night and that the protests take place during the day. So you say it's easier to identify and go after people that are carrying out a peaceful protest during the day rather than a firebombing at night. Is that correct?
Yeah, if I could just say, I wish you would assure your constituents in all the counties that the Justice Department does not treat people in the way that is described.
Well, then let's-
We treat like cases alike. We do not have one view.
Okay.
Unless they're classified documents, then one president gets raided, the other one gets a couple of, under the radar kind of quiet visits for a couple months. Nobody talks about it for a while, and then it all just goes by the wayside. So we have some more here. Let's check back in with Tom Massey. No. Massey's in the house. I was taking a look. I was trying to dig up the clip from our friend Senator Kennedy. Let's see if I can find this in real time. The audio was a little bit wonky on the other clips that I prepped up. So let's see if I can get Kennedy queued up. Wherever he was. Here he is. After Hirono.
I remember.
Thing we can to deter and prosecute.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I think my time is up.
Yeah, your time's up.
Thank you.
Cut her off, man.
Thank you,
Finally.
Senator Rono. Senator Kennedy?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, General, for being here. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
I read.
Come on. Play. C-SPAN's giving me some difficulty here.
Somewhere, I don't remember who said it, but I wrote it, but I remember it. It was once observed that a parent who stops loving their children.
Okay.
If a parent stops loving their children,
Okay.
the children will not stop loving the parent.
Okay.
The children will stop loving themselves.
Yes.
I know we can agree.
That's heavy,
that,
bro.
we should encourage parents to be involved in their kids' lives.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure we can agree that we should encourage parents to make their kids do their homework.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do
so
your homework,
there's sometimes
kids.
some resistance to that.
Right, right. And to make sure they get sleep at night so they can be ready for school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here's what I've always been confused about. Didn't you understand the chilling effect that it would have to parents when you issued your directive, when you directed your criminal divisions and your counterterrorism divisions to investigate parents who were angry at school boards and administrators during COVID?
So Senator, if you just give me a moment to put the full context, I did not.
Oh, man. What happened here? C-SPAN's giving me some grief here. I was just opening up another document. Let's go back.
At school boards and administrators during COVID?
So Senator, if you just give me a moment to put the full context, I did not do that. I did not issue any memorandum directing the investigation of parents who were concerned about their children. Quite to the contrary, the memorandum that you're talking about says at the very beginning of the memorandum that vigorous public debate is protected by the First Amendment. And the kind of concerns that you're talking about are, as expressed by parents, are of course completely protected. The memorandum was aimed at violence and threats of violence against a whole host of school personnel. It was not aimed at parents making complaints to their school board. And it came in the context of a whole series of other kinds of violent threats and violence against other public officials.
Let's walk through this. Your directive to your criminal division and your counterterrorism division came in a response to a letter from the National School Boards Association, did it not?
In part to the letter and in part to news reports of violence and threats of
And
violence.
the National School Board Association said these parents ought to be investigated under the Patriot Act as potential domestic terrorists.
And you'll notice, Senator, that I said nothing like
I
that.
understand, but that's what the letter said.
There was a reference to that in the letter,
Right.
something I disagree with.
And your employee,
Yeah, but that's what they do all the time, right? Is they sort of will write pretextual documents, and then those documents will be used by other entities to further a narrative. And so I actually did pull up that document, we think. Well, we'll go back to it.
he's helped them write the letter, didn't they?
I don't know anything to suggest that that's true.
I
No,
think
don't.
it is true.
Well-
And the White House helped them write that letter, didn't they?
I don't know. I have no knowledge about that, but certainly I don't know anything about my employees
And so-
helping write that letter.
So you get this letter from the National School Board Association asking you to investigate parents that your employees helped write and that the White House helped write, and you issue a directive to your criminal division and to your counterintelligence or counterterrorism division to start investigating parents who are angry. What did you think was going to happen?
Say again, Senator, that nothing in my memorandum says to investigate parents who are angry. Quite the opposite. It says that the First Amendment protects that kind of vigorous debate. The only thing we wanted was for an assessment to be made out in the field about whether federal assistance was needed to prevent violence and threats of violence.
Well, one of your that's not the way your department implemented your directive. One of your field offices actually opened an investigation. You set up a website and a hotline to report parents. And
I don't think, we didn't set up a specific hotline about this. This was a reference to the FBI's
Democratic
hotline.
Party official contacted you They said that some Republicans were inciting violence by expressing public displeasure with school districts' vaccine mandates. And one of your field offices opened an investigation, which is a permanent part of their record.
Senator, I don't know anything about the specific thing that you're talking about. They used to say in high school, this is going to be on your permanent record. I don't believe there is any such thing with respect to this.
I think there is at the FBI, General, and you and I both know there is. There was a lady a mom in Michigan. She has a special needs kid, and the kid was doing pretty well. And she got upset with her local school board over its closures and virtual learning policies. And she went to the meeting. And she made an intemperate comment. She accused them of being a bunch of Nazis.
Okay, yeah, that sounds reasonable. That sounds reasonable. I mean,
Why would the FBI open an investigation of her?
Again, I don't know anything about the specifics of the case, but accusing people of being Nazis, while I find bad, is certainly not criminal. It's totally protected by the First Amendment.
Protected.
And I've said that over and over again.
So why would she investigate?
This is not the first time we've discussed this.
That's not what your department did.
Yeah.
Well, this is about the third time I'm being asked about the same memorandum, and each time I've said, and I hope that the senators would go ahead and advise their constituents in the same way, that this is not what we do. We are not in any way trying to interfere with parents making complaints about the education of their children.
But don't you understand, General, and I believe you, but don't you understand that this looks like you were just giving in to the teachers' unions and politicizing the disagreement, the honest disagreements? I mean, we only, as a result of some of our school board policies, we only experienced the largest learning loss for our kids in modern history.
Yeah, just not a big deal. Just a couple
years
years
had a right to be
wasted, evaporated.
Instead of what is
shoving kids in front of Zoom
you
classes.
Implemented what's a threat tag?
I didn't implement the threat tag. What you're talking about there is a part of internal FBI operations.
Yeah,
as far as I can.
You directed your folks, though, to open threat tags on these parents and investigate them.
Yeah, I did not direct that. My understanding from testimony by the FBI is that when somebody makes a complaint and it involves, if somebody gives a tip that a school official is being threatened, then there's, in order to look at trends, they mark it as a tip involving a school official. They have the same set of threat tags with respect to a complaint that suggests somebody is making a threat against a Supreme Court justice. These aren't complaints. These are tips of violence or threats of violence.
A threat tag on a parent for being concerned at a school board meeting?
It's not.
Yeah, like on your emails, right? Like you label them. You're like, okay, move this over to the financial label, or move this over to the to-do label, or move this over to violent parent insurrectionist MAGA into that category. The FBI, they don't have really many other labels. That label is very full. They've got a lot of unreads in there. And so strange that a parent who called other teachers or other school board members or other people who were acting like Nazis, right? Who were acting like insane people who were trying to control and do horrendous things, right, to their kids, got upset, said some things, and then got investigated by the FBI for it.
Not on the parent. It's not on whoever. It's on to indicate that a threat was made against, or at least alleged that a threat was made against a school board member or a school official or a teacher or a school. Some of these turned out to be bomb threats.
Senator Kennedy, we're going to have a second round of questioning on behalf of Chairman Durbin, who is going to vote.
All right, so they are now taking a break, of course, and they'll come back. And I wanted to check in just a little bit with our friend Chuck Grassley. He had some questions, I think, at the end of the segment. And so Chuck Grassley is over from Iowa. And here is Chuck. He has some final questions to wrap it up for us.
We'd be happy to work with your team on this. Yeah,
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator Whitehouse. Senator Grassley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for General Garland for being here. My first question is a follow-up to a line of questioning you had with Senator Cotton. You told this committee that, quote, the executive branch cannot simply decide based on policy disagreements that it will not enforce a law at all, end of quote. Then you released a December 16th, 22 memo instructing prosecutors to disregard the law that establishes sentencing differences between cocaine and cocaine base. Your decision not to enforce the law ended congressional discussions at that particular point for a compromise. If DOJ claims that it will ignore the law by declining to prosecute a law that grew out of a bipartisan compromise forged in this committee, it's hard to see how members can trust the department about following any further bipartisan deals. So I'm going to ask you, would you withdraw your memo so that a meaningful legislative discussion can resume? And if you don't have a agreement with me, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, Senator, I want to be clear. We're not in any case saying that we won't enforce the law. In all the examples that we're talking about here, people are being prosecuted for violation of the Controlled Substances Act. It's only a question of what sentence we will seek. And this has been a matter of prosecutorial discretion. We do not in any way limit the judge. We have to honestly tell the judge what the drug was and what the amounts was. But this is goes to the question of what we will charge and seek. But we are charging these people with violations of the Controlled Substances Act.
So that's Chuck Grassley, and of course, reading some questions. We love Chuck, but he's a little bit slow for us here tonight. So we'll leave it there. But we covered some good ground, my friends, and boy, a lot of fun here. I mean, a lot of red meat there. Not missing anything. We got Tom Cotton, we got Senator Kennedy, we had Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz, really fired up, extra spicy today, letting Attorney General Merrick Garland have it. Now we'll ask ourselves and continue to follow up and see whether anything gets done about this, whether they change their perspective, or really, I think, as far as they're concerned, it's a job well done. They have weaponized the entire agency, essentially. FBI, DOJ, they've got Health and Human Services now, they have DHS, they've got a lot of these institutions. So being hauled in front of Congress and being lectured every couple of years, it's like, all right, whatever. That's all I have to do. I get to do literally whatever I want, whenever I want it. There's no repercussions at all. I just got to go sit there for a couple hours every couple of years. All right. Well, we'll see. Now, at some point, presumably the Republicans will control the House and will control the White House as well as the Senate. And then we'll see what they do, and we'll continue to cover. Thank you for liking this video wherever it is you're watching it. Thank you for subscribing and following us along here. Thank you for sharing this and inviting people to come and join us on the live stream so that they can continue to follow along as this story unfolds. We'll see you on the next one. All right, my friends. Well, we'll leave it there. I want to see what you have to say about this. I think I saw maybe a super chat or two come in. I don't know. But if not, we had, of course, our friends to thank. Oh, yeah. Fred Petamonte was in the house. And his rascally dog. And Zulu sent one in. And Zulu here, the first one, says, I'll be late, but I wanted to stop in and register the first of the evening. And thank you for doing that, Zulu. That was a very special re just for you, my friend. And I appreciate you being here. And thanks for the support. And Zulu's also helping fill our memberships up with those very lovely membership gifts. And we're grateful for you there, Zulu. And Zulu, I'm wondering, have you come over to Telegram yet? Are you in there yet? We'll have to see if you join us over there. All right, we got Fred Petamonte, who says, Rob, Johnny received a package today. Oh, great. Yesterday, Fred Petamonte's dog was hanging out with Peter Daszak and Anthony Fauci. Look at this cute little fella, right? He's cute, but be very careful with him, okay? Look at this guy. See that fella right there? That's who we're talking about. All right, let's see what he got into today. He was hanging out with Peter Daszak yesterday and Fauci. They were talking about smallpox. They were laughing. So, all right, today he says, Rob, Johnny received a package today. Oh, great. I found out it was 10,000 fentanyl pills. He says, does anyone want an 11-month-old male Chiweenie? Contact me ASAP. And what are you selling it for? I want to know. Does the dog come with the fentanyl pills? You know, you might get some interesting offers. I'm not interested, but you might get some interesting offers on that. You know, probably a pretty penny for it too. I don't know what they're charging those days, but you might see if you can work out a deal there, Fred. Good luck to you. And if you clear a cool couple million, hopefully you spread some of the love on the super chats tomorrow. All right. And you'll be free of a rascally dog. All right. Thank you to Fred. And thank you to our friend, Johnny, the COVID dog. All right. And so thank you to our friend Zulu and Fred for the very generous super chats today. We also want to shout out our friends over on Rumble. We have, who's in the house over there? We got Army Brat. Nick Danger is over there. Slow Hand Toasty Seats says it's avocado time. That sounds good. Jan X over there. We've got Love and Victory. Peter Tag is over there along with Slickster, Jan X, and our good friends over on Rumble. So thanks for watching us over there on Rumble. I appreciate you guys. And we're looking forward to seeing who else is on Twitter before we jump over to our after party. Now, if you're a member, if you are a YouTube member or a Locals member, don't forget to join the Telegram chat so that you can join us for the after party, which we will attend to here in a short minute. But first, let's see what's going on over on Twitter. Is anybody watching the show over there? Holy moly, we do. We've got 4 people. This is out of control. Elon better, is Elon seeing this right now? He better, somebody tag Elon, let him know. All right, so let's see what's here. We got Paul Mino. We got Vientikis Primes here. We got Jenny B. Let's see who's here. First one from Paul Mino. Now, you know, this guy's just rocking out. That's all it is. He's just dancing around. Paul says, this is all I got today. Love your show, Rob. He is partying hard. Paul's partying hard. Thank you, Paul. I love your Twitter posts. Thanks for being here with us. We also had this one from Vientikis, and I saw Paul's back. Paul's on Twitter, or Paul's on our Telegram, and he said that he's going to be back. Paul said over on Telegram that he's back and in business, and he's got a plan. It sounds like there's going to be repercussions coming for some people in the Locals chat, so that should be fun. Vientikis is sharing this interesting image of this person, and I don't know if this is like a good character or a bad character or where this character is from. Typically, when you see giant kind of satanic horns coming out of a character's head, not generally a good character. Usually the good characters don't have the horns, generally speaking, but, you know, your mileage may vary. Salt Farmer says, what are your thoughts on this? The cartel Hobbs stuff? You know, I haven't seen really anything to corroborate it. In fact, I think the person who even brought the person, I might have saved this. Let me see if I saved this. I thought that the person who even invited the person to present was sort of regretting it or walking it back. So just be careful with stories like this, right? Here's what I saw from Bram Resnick. He covers NBC News Phoenix. Okay, so this is from somebody who covers NBC News Phoenix. Says that this person, legislative district, just in, Republican with Republican leadership and threats of defamation lawsuits, the Republican representative state Liz Harris walks it all back in this 6 p.m. Telegram post. The speaker Harris invited couldn't back up her claim. So they're saying that she's actually sort of walking that back. And let's see if we can see what this says. Good Lord, it's like the smallest image in the planet. All right. This says February 28th, posted by NBC News from Liz Harris. It says, what was presented at Thursday's hearing was not sufficient. What was presented at Thursday's hearing was not sufficient to substantiate these extraordinary claims. From Elizabeth Harris, right? She says, our committee's job is to listen to a number of experts and members of the public, and the mere fact that we listen to a presentation does not mean we endorse or agree with it. So that's what that's what I have seen. The conclusion that I would draw from that is that it's probably something I'd be careful with as being factual if the person who invited them to speak is also sort of saying it's not enough there to substantiate the claims. But that's kind of the latest that I've seen. I haven't really dug into it. I know somebody posted the full PDF over on our locals forum. But anyways, thank you. That's a great question over on Twitter. And I think I lost the rest of the Twitter thread. That one came in from Jenny. No, that was from Salt Farmer. And Jenny B's over there also. And so shout out to our friends on Twitter. We appreciate you following along over there and joining us on Twitter. However, my friends, that is it for us on the day. And so we are going to leave it there. We covered some good ground. We're going to go over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com to hang out and join our members only after party comments, debrief, extravaganza. And so if you're a YouTube member, don't forget, you can get the Telegram group. Just go into the community post section, get the link. Join us if you'd like to join us on YouTube. On Rumble, you can click the locals button. Join us on locals. If you're already on locals, join us. If you just are not watching us anywhere, just go over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com and join us. We do member only streams. So tomorrow morning, we'll do a headline stream, a little show prep stream if you want to join us over there. So Brickhouse Nutrition, also a sponsor of the program. Don't forget to get your Field of Greens. Head on over to fieldofgreens.com. Save 15% when you check out. Use code Robert so that you can save your 15%. The vegetables want to be eaten. They make you feel healthy, vibrant, and well, and you'll be bursting with green energy. It's just the way to go. So check them out, fieldofgreens.com. Code Robert when you check out. Also, want to shout out my former law firm. I am no longer at the R&R Law Group, but they still are the R&R Law Group, and they are dedicated to helping good people charged with crimes in the state of Arizona find safety, clarity, and hope. They're online, rrlawaz.com or 480-787-0394. They do amazing work over there. So, want to thank the mods and the meme smiths who mod down the fort for us. We got Vienticus Prime. K Bean is in the house. We got Just Cause shouting out, playing hooky. Ronnie Cole in the house, along with our friend Zulu and Geomancy Games. And we've also got John Allen and Zach Nichols, who we're going to add to the screen. And I think hopefully those are the names they want on there. But they're modding down the Telegram for us, and we appreciate them. So we'll get them added to the board. Also want to shout out our meme smiths, Sleepy Dog Lee, and of course, Geegum Geegum over on Locals. And I saw Geegum just posted a very fun graphic, which we'll take a look at here in a minute at our after party. Thank you, Geegum. It's very, very cool. We'll take a look at that here in a second. And so thank you to everybody who helps keep the show on the tracks. We appreciate you. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. And so we are going over for our after parties, YouTube members, Locals members. We're going to see you in a quick minute, but everybody else, have yourselves a beautiful evening. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Have a tremendous evening, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.